starting out with this sort of like relatively cautious group of people that he is pardoning. He's issuing those federal pardons for, it'll affect about 6,500 people, like I said, at the national level. And then also many thousands of people evidently under the DC statute, because the District of Columbia falls under federal law. They don't have statehood. So the total number isn't known just yet. But I think, his sort of cautiousness with it really is borne out in the bipartisan support that's come across, like every single person. I was writing about Representative Nancy Mace, who's a Republican who supports cannabis reform. She came out and she was like, I applaud the administration. The Koch brothers, famously conservative, have a group called Americans for Prosperity, which issued a statement saying, we applaud and praise the Biden administration.
How interesting, because he works with Weldon Angelos and Snoop.
Right. They're very smart in their alliances, right?
Yeah.
There was, obviously the progressive candidates who are running for office, like John Fetterman in Pennsylvania, or the governors who have already sort of like been pro-cannabis reform. They all came out, like Newsom, saying this is a great job and we welcome working with the Biden administration. So across the board, apart from fuckface, and I don't say it lightly, Tom Cotton, Senator Tom Cotton, who's a Republican out of Arkansas, was like, this is just a smokescreen, failed drug policy, immigrants, borders, whatever. And it was just like, dude, read the fucking room.
Right. But also,
read the room.
But also on the Tom Cotton tip, had Biden done more than just simple possession, people like Ted Cruz, Donald Trump, Tom Cotton, they can come out and use fear-based tactics about like, oh, this person who's carrying a gun in their car and has drugs in their car, and now Biden wants to release them onto your streets. Like, the amount of spin and double damage that him doing too much too fast could do, it's just not worth it long term.
It is time to be careful, especially with the midterms coming up. I mean, Kellyanne Conway was just on some outlet, I'm sure it was Fox, probably saying that, marijuana deaths had doubled in the last year. She was talking about drug deaths, specifically relating them to marijuana, and doing all sorts of scaremongering and fear tactics. So it is a time to be careful. It is a time to, choose words carefully if you're running for office. Not that Biden is running for office. I mean, that's another thing that Dave Holland, who's a friend of the podcast,
lawyer,
wonderful attorney on the East Coast, he was like, this isn't really going to affect Biden per se. This may buoy up some Democrats for the midterm elections, but this is, Dave said, he really sees this as Biden sort of cementing his legacy as a progressive long term, and that it really isn't so much about getting out the vote. So it's just, hot takes all over the place. Not that I think Dave's is an informed take, but there are lots of different ways to look at it and sort of, read what this means.
Well, it's interesting because I saw a little clip from Fox News, and all they're able to do right now, because of how carefully he chose his words, but they felt the need to get something out that would bash him, was the idea of what could this be a gateway for. And so going back to this like 1760s drug propaganda about gateway, cannabis being a gateway drug. And so really,
which was a talking point of Biden's for a very long time.
1,000,000%. So we'll get into the timeline for a second. I just want to say, like, the fact that it was chosen so carefully and simple possession is the first step allows places like Fox News to kind of just be trying to hit a baseball with a wiffle ball bat.
Right. Well, and honestly, in my, maybe you've seen some more than I have, but like in my sort of scrolling through Twitter to sort of see some of the reviews and views from the right, suspiciously quiet. For instance, like Pennsylvania Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, who's running for Democratic Senate position, is up against Dr. Oz. Hi, everybody. That guy, the fucking, like...
You just sounded like The Simpsons Dr. Nick. Is that based on Dr. Oz?
I think so. I think it's like the same... It's like the cartoon version of the guy who's like...
Hi, Dr. Oz.
Here, take this potion and it'll cure everything if you just give me your money. But he's the one who like went to the supermarket in Pennsylvania and was like, oh, these crudités are unaffordable. And then everyone was like, it's a veggie tray butt wipe. Like, you're not even from here. Get the fuck out. So anyway, Dr. Oz has been very quiet on all of this. He's got nothing to say about it because Fetterman has been pro-pot this whole time, pro-cannabis reform in an awesome way. And they've been hammering him for it. And he's like, well, look who I've got backing me up now. The big dog.
Dad.
Yeah. And that's
my big brother.
Yeah.
Right.
Dank Brandon.
Yeah.
Which we should get into because, in speaking with Dave Holland and other activists.
Producer Mark just put up a sign. Let's grow Brandon.
Oh my